Hello again, Internet. Been a long time. Welcome to the 12th in this rather self-indulgent little series of my trying to put things into words as I understand them. Um, Today's I'm going to jump right into because it feels big and I'm not sure how much I can fit into just the amount of time we've got. This is one of the stereo instructions ones. I call them stereo instructions ones. Um, they are very fundamental. They have to do with the basics of how we think and operate and put together reality. This has to do with indecision. I started thinking about indecision because when the weather is crappy, and believe me, it is crappy, and times are tough in various ways, one of the symptoms of being low that gets stronger as you descend into and through depression is this crippling indecision, this inability to make smaller and smaller and simpler decisions until finally you can't get out of bed or you can't even physically move because you just can't seem to get around things enough to come to a conclusion about what you are going to do, even if it feels like you know what you should do, even if it's obvious what you should do, and in other circumstances you wouldn't even have to decide on it. You get this feeling of just being like, oh, I don't know. And it's for everything from like reaching for an apple or a bowl of ice cream to, doing your work or procrastinating or, taking a shower or making life decisions, picking up the phone, whatever. Like all of these things. This is a very fundamental like thing about indecision. Um, when we are indecisive, we are usually going between, we're going to say A and B just to simplify, but of course there could be more options. We're like, I don't know, should I do this? Should I do that? Um, and it occurred to me today that the way to answer those decisions is to stop making them, to stop engaging in the struggle of yes or no, do I do this, do I do that, which a huge amount of the time is unnecessary intellectualization, when in fact the correct answer would be apparent and has been apparent the whole time if we could shut the mind up and stop going back and forth and going, do I do this thing, don't I do this thing? Um, by it to me it feels like you put down the puzzle. You basically solve the puzzle by like ceasing to work on it and setting it down and going, no, I'm not going to struggle at this anymore. I'm just going to look at it and say, what is the thing that should be done here? And then I'm going to just stop trying not to do it. There isn't a thing here that branches out into not only martial arts but every art where you do a thing correctly by getting out of your own way, by ceasing to resist doing it, by ceasing to be in the way of letting it happen. When you sing purely, you open your mouth and you let the music come through and you deliberately affect it almost as little as possible, the same way as when you're throwing an internal punch in martial arts. You want to relax all of the unnecessary muscles that you possibly can as much as possible. Like you literally study holding your arm up here versus what do I have to do to just have the tension in there that I need to keep my arm in the air, to not have any extra holding up of my body at all, because that additional tension is stopping the energy I want to move through me from coming through me. Not to digress into martial arts, but excitingly, I have started recording videos on internal movement now, so that will be a thing pretty soon. I'm kind of excited about that. Regardless, when it comes to decision making, that struggle that you're engaging in is two things. First of all, it's a way for the ego to assert itself. It is, in fact, the assertion of the complex of psychological like stuff that is going on that wants to be you, that is very concerned with its existence and its importance and its worth. And by engaging in decision making, whether it's picking out bread at the store or investing in mutual funds or getting out of bed now or in 5 minutes, by engaging in that back and forth, by bargaining, by, by weighing things, it it's asserting that this is you being alive right now. Look at me, I'm making the decisions. And in reality, those decisions don't need to be made. The answer to should you get up now or in 5 minutes is you should get up now. Like, and that's not there is no like there is no hypothetical imperative way to state what the right answer is in every case. But like, the fact that you should eat the apple rather than the ice cream is, like, it's pretty clear in the fact that you're struggling between the two. And even when it isn't, like, it's clear from the circumstances. It does require a little bit of faith, like a leap of faith to say the answer is there. But it doesn't require much faith to recognize it. When you do see it, it's pretty clear and like, oh, okay, that is in fact the easy, correct thing to do. But it's not easy because we're fighting it. Once you stop fighting it and go, the thing I need to do right now is get my ass up and walk across the room. Like, what's stopping me from getting up and walking across the room is in fact the decision. It's not the indecision. It's funny, we call it that. It's an indecision problem. Actually, no, it's a decision problem. The problem is that you are trying to make a decision when you don't need to make a decision. All you need to do is accept the reality that you're sitting in and stop resisting doing the thing that should be done and just let it happen. Now, here's the funny thing. This comes across when you first start to get the hang of it, I guess. You first think about it before you really start applying it. This comes across as something that must take a lot of energy. Like, wow, if every time I thought, wow, I should get up and do a thing, I got up and did that thing, I'd be out of spoons in 5 minutes. But the reality is, you were out of spoons because of all of the energy you were dumping into deciding, into going back and forth and weighing things and arguing with yourself and bargaining and whatever. That's where the major energy loss was coming from. When you stop arguing, when you stop deciding, and you just let a thing happen, you suddenly are in possession of a whole bunch of extra energy that you just didn't spend. I was immediately reminded when I started thinking of this, a really helpful way for me to make the idea of choosing to give up deciding, choosing to give up my desire for there to be an intellectually decided answer to everything, including whether or not I was going to put my socks on right now, was to think of it as a sacrifice in the spirituality sense. Like, you're going to sacrifice some time and some discomfort to sit and meditate for a while, or you're going to sacrifice your, your time and attention to mass or whatever you're doing. Like, the religious practice often involves making deliberate sacrifice. And so I thought, well, I can sacrifice my desire to be engaged in this decision making process, and instead I can be more humble about, reality being what it is and my need to accept reality instead of trying to wrest control of it all the time. And I can therefore, I can make that sort of an offering. Well, then I was immediately reminded of the kind of joke about biblical offerings is that the guy that makes the offering gets to eat the goat. like it's not like the deity comes and takes the meat away, but now that you've killed it, what are you going to do with it? Well, of course you get to eat it. Offler gets the spirit of the sausages. We get the sausages. And like, but funnily enough, that's what happens. You're in essence, you're sacrificing energy that you would have spent being engaged in this internal back and forth to a higher good, to the idea that there are, like, to the idea that reality is, and acting in accordance with it, and doing the things that should be done, and is the way of the sage, or the path, or whatever, pick a thing. It's a good thing. And like, but when you do that, you're sacrificing that energy that you would have spent, but then you didn't spend it, and it's not like the deity shows up and takes it. You get that energy back. And I have only had a hold of this realization now. This is a new one. I've only had a hold of this for like at 2 hours. For 1 hour of that, I've been hammering it out on the phone with a friend of mine to try and get it in forms I could put in words. But I wanted to get it down here because I've been wanting to make another video, and I was like, ah, I have my topic. Oh my god, this is an epic hack on so many levels. Um, but the I always lose my train of thought at some point in these, like 10 minutes in. Does anybody notice that? Like somewhere in there when it's too late to stop and start over again, I'm like, oh, was the thing I was gonna say next. Um, Anyway, you get the spoons back. Was the important thing. I've only had a hold of this for an hour. Thank you to the nobody that just helped me with that. Um, I've only had this for an hour, and although I was talking about it for part of that time, for the rest of the time I was actually just like, oh, okay, like what happens if I do this? Every time I go, should I pick the towel up off the floor or not? Of course I should pick the towel up. Stop deciding. Just stop deciding, stop resisting, let it happen. Okay. Should I take the clothes that need hand washing into the shower with me? Of course I should. Like, if I were making that decision, I would most often have decided not to do at least one of those things. I usually do pick up my towels, but I've been having trouble getting my hand washables done for the last couple showers. And like, and but that's exactly what happens. And I looked at it and I'm like, I spent that half an hour, doing a couple things, and I was shockingly more efficient and shockingly more productive just in the little things. Did this get put down in the right spot? Did that get done? Did the good snack get reached for? Um, all of those things. It just and I'm walking through it going, I've had no spoons. Oh my god, all of this snow, and we have like 4 feet of snow is awful. Like all of that and various other things. I have been having a week of barely enough spoons to get through a day, and I especially had none today. And so but yeah, all like these things happen, and it's like they were happening automatically. They weren't taking energy. I was actually getting energy back from doing them. But what I was essentially doing was the right thing that's supposed to be hard to decide to do. And I guess that's perfectly correct. It is hard to decide to do because you can't decide to do it. Like you can, you're if you grind yourself through this process of making these decisions, sometimes you're going to come to the right one. And sometimes you're going to come to rest on the right one. You're going to decide to eat the apple instead. But then what happens is you're burning willpower. That's willpower, very yang thing. It's something that you're making it happen. Like you're forcing that. You're going all the way through the process and going, I've decided this thing, and like it's not always that clear or complex or exaggerated, but the end result is kind of the same. You put all of this effort into it. It's a desire mechanism. You desire there to be a clear answer that your ego was involved in making, and that if you pick A or B, it's going to be because you picked A or B, instead of that you offered up the the bulk of the decision making to the idea that there is a right answer, and it is the answer that is in accord with reality. And if you just seek stillness enough to give you clarity so that you can see reality, that answer will become apparent to you, and then your job is to stop resisting it and make it happen. Sometimes that's going to be shockingly difficult. Sometimes it's going to be a thing that you really don't want to do. Maybe it's a thing that's diametrically opposed to one of your long-term goals, or it requires you to change your position on something or give up something that, you really want to hold on to. The answers are not always easy, that's for damn sure. But deciding which one to do is not actually hard because it's not actually beneficial or necessary. As my friend put it, the correct answer to A or B is put down the puzzle, walk away. Like, it's not, it's actually, again, like most of these things, way easier and yet incredibly more difficult than anyone would think. So thank you for spending the time sitting here watching me ponder around this thing that I've just pondered. I'm really thrilled to see what's going to happen over the course of the next couple days, etc. I will try to write more stuff about this. It's been really great to talk to you all. Apologies for the production quality as always, and have a lovely evening.